Hi, everyone. Welcome to Studio Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. You can find me on Twitter at @RealJacobAiry. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, share it, because I've got a very special guest. She's a friend of the program, Stefanie MacWilliams of Halsey News and the Right Millennial here on YouTube. So definitely go find her on Twitter and subscribe to her YouTube page right after you subscribe to mine after watching the Oscars Part 2. And I've invited Stefanie on because the Oscars have said that they're going to, I mean the Academy, because you know the cabal that runs the Oscars, they have said that they're going to tone down the politics this year. But then Jimmy Kimmel did an interview recently where he was like, oh no, I'm not toning anything down. So they invited him back despite the fact last year's Oscars had the worst ratings since David Letterman hosted it, I think. So, and that was pretty terrible. Now, I didn't watch it live when he did that, but I went back and watched clips, and he was awful. So, but anyway, Stefanie, welcome to Studio Jake.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to see you. It's been a while since last time I was on, where I was totally like, you know, I'm a terrible critic of culture, and that I'm such a nerd that I don't even watch anything new or know what's going on. And it's really interesting, though, to see how many, and, you know, I kind of watch, you know, what's going on with the Academy and other things for the politics. So, you know what, I get why no one wants it to be political, but at the same time, that's kind of where I'm just sitting there with my popcorn, a little bit interested watching everyone fight over this right now.
Well, and you go from Oscars So White, which Chris Rock hosted, which I know at the ceremony, I watched his opening monologue, which was actually pretty good, where he just mocked the Oscars So White hashtag, and then he invited Stacey Dash on stage, and you could tell everyone just kind of cringed. But and I actually think Stacey Dash is running for Congress here in California as a Republican.
Oh.
Yeah, I think her tagline is "Dash to Washington."
Of course. You know, if I had a last name like that, I don't know. You have to do like a cutesy campaign slogan. It's just
you can't do much with airy, like fly with airy. That wouldn't work. I have a very unpolitical name.
Nothing rhymes with Stefanie MacWilliams. Nothing rhymes with, it's not cute. And I also would rather do almost anything than actually be in politics, because I'd be an absolutely terrible politician. So
I know. I was telling someone the other day when the Fifth Circuit Court over here in the United States. Now, Stefanie is a Canadian, so but she is really up on all things American politics. And I was telling someone the other day, when the Fifth Court? No, I'm sorry, the Ninth Court ruled President Trump's temporary suspension from different countries in the Middle East, when he said we're not going to be taking immigrants from there for now, and the Ninth Court said can't do it. I would have said, me as president, that's not your constitutional powers. You don't have that authority. Tough cookies. I would make it. And then, of course, what the media is now, they'd be calling me a tyrant and everything. So, so I'd be probably a terrible.
They don't understand, because the top minds of the media seem to know, not to be all, you know, ego here, but seem to know less than the Canadian who just, you know, started actually reading founding documents of the United States and actually started studying what the actual branches of power actually can do and cannot do. So yeah, it's interesting. I love it. I love America. I'm just a hopeful future American, just so everybody knows.
Now I'm curious to know, because like the movies here in the United States, now, especially movie companies, like you see Disney doing this a lot, the Weinstein Company before their breakdown, they definitely did this. As a Canadian, and I've seen some Canadian films, they're pretty good, you know.
I don't even know what's come out of Hollywood North, you know.
As the Oscars, because the Oscars are tomorrow, as the Oscars are coming in, you as a Canadian, are you going, man, all these films are American films. Does Canada have like a kind of an Oscars equivalent for Canadian filmmakers?
I honestly have no idea. I don't know. And it's such a, I feel like with a lot of things in Canada, we have very kind of specific media in general. I feel like it's a lot smaller, right? I mean, you're looking at a lot smaller of a group of people. And you're looking at the fact as well that a lot of the top people that are going to be making the best stuff are also living one country away from the country that actually makes the best stuff. So I feel like we just end up having a thing where it's a lot more niche stuff. But I'm sure there are some good things coming out of Canada. But I honestly, it's like a lot of these things, you just see it and you just kind of assume it's probably from the United States. That might be really terrible. Can you tell I'm not the most? Yeah, I love Canada in a lot of ways, but like my heart and soul is like I'm born in the wrong country.
Yeah, I get that. I always say Texas first, so much to chagrin. Yeah, I know. Makes a lot of people angry. It was kind of funny because Ben Shapiro, who I write for at the Daily Wire, he went to Texas and he was like, because like he was expecting to see like a lot of Southern pride stuff, not necessarily Confederate flags, but he was expecting to see Dixie and the Bonnie blue flag and all that. And he was like, "Whoa, everything is just Texas. They just fly Texas flags everywhere," and it's true. It's just Texas, like, and everything is named.
First time recently, and it's true. I bought like a sweater, and I have like a shirt, and I have a coffee mug that says "Don't mess with Texas" that I keep my pens in. It's cool. I loved it, and I think it's really interesting how you have that. And I mean, we kind of have a similar thing in Canada in a way as well. I lived in Alberta for a year and a half, and that's exactly the same thing because Alberta is so conservative compared to the rest of the country, and they have their own culture. Kind of, it's a lot more. I don't know, a lot more of your kind of more typical kind of farm culture, country culture, and oil field culture. So when I was there, it was very funny how like just the culture was so different. And I feel like it's kind of like the same kind of idea. And everyone was like, "I'm from Alberta, I'm from Canada." They see the rest of Canada and they're like, the horrible liberals ruining our farming industry. Pretty much, which I mean, they're not wrong.
That's true. Now, we kind of got off topic there. That was my fault. I started bragging about Texas. I'm good at that.
Yeah, see, this is the problem. Right here. And, Texas first, even over your show.
Yeah, exactly. But so the Oscars are tomorrow. We've got Jimmy Kimmel is returning as the host for some reason. And now, like I said, these Best Picture nominees, which I'm not even going to remember all of them, but we've got Call Me by Your Name, Shape of Water, Get Out, Dunkirk. I don't even know the rest. And it goes to show you how out of touch Hollywood is, with the exception of Get Out and Dunkirk. The other films did not do well at the box office. If you look at their critic scores compared to the audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes, everyone's like, "Oh, Rotten Tomatoes, it got a 95%." But then you look at the audience and it's like something like 30%.
A lot.
Yeah, exactly. And same with The Last Jedi. Like you see the critic score is something in the 80s and the audience score is, I think it's like 48 or something like that. So definitely there's a divide there. And I think that I really think it's a tone deafness to the Academy, because like every year they even when they started to become more and more, we're about patting ourselves on the back, they threw in a vanity pick for, or I'm sorry, not a vanity, a People's Choice pick. So like last year it was Hell or High Water with Chris Pine, and then this year they actually gave us two. They gave us Get Out and Dunkirk, because the audience scores for those, if you look, they're actually more I guess you could say
critics.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, in line with audience is. But again, it blew out all those movies, maybe with the exception of Get Out and Dunkirk. Why wasn't it nominated for Best Picture? And I haven't seen it, so maybe it's a terrible movie. Oh, you have? Okay, so you tell me.
I have seen it, and that is the one movie on this list that I've actually seen. Though I did want to see Get Out. I did really, really want to see Dunkirk because I really enjoy war movies. But no, and it's I think it must have done better even than those movies. I'd be surprised.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying
it was huge. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Like it's a popular appeal. But I think this comes from the whole thing with, the Academy. It's a very different thing. I think they aren't looking at it in terms of what the normal people are actually thinking of as a good movie. it's a very elitist way of looking at things. And I get it. There are certain things where, you know, you're going to have a more kind of professional opinion of it. Like, I think when you're judging things like, you know, sound direction and cinematography, it's like I can kind of see where they're coming from, that you're picking these really beautifully put together movies that might not be your kind of, you know, box office blowout film that everyone's seeing that's action packed and, you know, but, you know, for something like Best Picture, a movie like it, honestly, I wouldn't have a problem with that being Best Picture. It had a lot of, you know, it did have a lot of deep storytelling, you know, a lot of, you know, really moving elements to it. And I mean, I'm not saying necessarily it is Best Picture. I feel like a movie like Dunkirk, even though I haven't seen it, seems like it would be more of that. But I mean, like, they really couldn't have at least put it on the list, you know,
Right,
to be
yeah.
like, look, we actually care what actual people think. But that is everything to do with Hollywood. It's never about what actual human beings care about. It's always their bubble. It's always their little group of people and what those people care about. Whether it's politics or movies, you see the same kind of elitist attitude. And I think people are getting really sick of it.
I agree. And like, you could eat, like, my wife and I on Hulu, they've been showing like 90s Disney films, like they've been putting them on. And so we've been watching them, and you can see
Love it.
it's totally different than the films now that are coming out. So, like, for instance, like if you watch a modern day Disney Channel original film, if you watch one made today, the parents are super young, they're super good looking, and the kids are geniuses somehow, but they also have a rebellious streak. And but then you watch something like First Kid with Sinbad, or you watch Blank Check, and or Cool Runnings even, and you can just see it's more based on the culture. So like the parents, they're and I know like in the 2000s, we're having younger and younger parents and whatnot, but I just mean you kind of see where it's more about, oh, we're going to project our Hollywood image onto
what a family is, what
people.
family life is. Yeah, I can totally see that. It's very much changed. I mean, I haven't really super kept up with the evolution of Disney movies.
Oh no, I'm just saying, you know, compared.
Yeah, like, no, I wish I had. I love this is another reason that I tend to not care about things like the Oscars that much, because I'm just a huge fan of the kind of lowbrow, low art when it comes to things like movies. I'm a genuine lover of like terrible horror films, you know, or like thrillery horror movies. I love, you know, like beautiful cinema classics like The Princess Diaries and The Parent Trap. Like I enjoy those movies. I do not care if it is not a, you know, beautiful revelation of art. It's something that you enjoy watching, and a story that, you know, stories that stick with you, and stuff that you watch when you're younger that, you know, you kind of internalize. And I think that gets, you know, I wish there was a little regard for that. I mean, maybe not necessarily at, you know, Oscars Best Picture, but it would be nice if people in Hollywood would even consider that might be the case, that things could be a little bit quaint, and and that we're not stupid for liking that sort of stuff. I feel stupid whenever I see anything from Hollywood. That's kind of the main thing that kind of happens.
And seeing the films that they've chosen, like Shape of Water, it's a film about bestiality. Let's be real. It's a woman who falls in love with a fish creature. It's basically Splash with and I'm not saying Guillermo del Toro. I've seen Hellboy. It's a pretty good film, but I'm not a fan of Del Toro. Like when people were all excited when he was the original pick to do The Hobbit, I was not. I was like, it's going to be really
his vision making it weird.
Right, exactly. All his films are very aesthetically pleasing, but there's really, with the exception of Hellboy, I guess, they're not
which is
really story. Well, Hellboy was based on a comic book, so that's why I probably am being more lenient on that one. But
yeah,
and also too, what's the other one?
Pan's Labyrinth.
Call Me by Your Name. It's about pedophilia. I mean, let's be real. It's about a 30-year-old man seducing a 17-year-old boy. And I know that the defenders are saying, oh, but in Italy, the age of consent is 16. It's like, but it's not in America.
Still, even if it is, it's not, you know, you don't even have to say it's defined as, you know, oh, this is totally pedophilia, but it's still not, you know, is this a message we want to be pushing, right? I mean,
right.
It's, is this something that we really want to be promoting as the best, you know, the best picture? And I actually saw, I watched the trailer for all these movies. I did put in that effort as much, guys, to watch all the trailers. And I figured I should probably know something going on in the world if someone asked me, like, oh, have you seen any good movies lately? But it was, oh, I don't know, watching it. First of all, I was just watching it. I was like, is there a story to this? It literally seems to have absolutely no story. It's all just like, look how artistic and gay we are. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Like,
well, and one thing too is Ben Davies over at The Rebel, he reviews movies on Pure Hollywood, and he just said, I don't know why this movie is getting all this accolades. He said, you know, I decided to put aside that, and I was just going to try to enjoy it as a movie. And he's like, this movie is boring. And
it looks boring.
It does look, yeah, I watched the trailer as well. It looks boring. Besides the fact that it's super creepy, it's very, it looked boring. Why would I go watch that? And I know Lady Bird is the other one. Lady Bird and Three Billboards. Those two movies, Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. Like, I guess Lady Bird, honestly, I'm tired of movies about punk teens who get their way. Like, that's what that movie looked like. It looks like a whiny brat who hates her mom. Yeah, exactly. It's a more vulgar version of those Disney movies we were talking about, you know?
Yeah, without the charm, without the kind of self-awareness to it. I think that's a big part of it. I mean, it's like it's so, and I have a thing where I really hate movies where I really think it's a kind of sign of our kind of cultural obsession with, you know, perpetual adolescence, where it's almost like a trend that movies are almost entirely movies are where teenagers and young adults tell all the old wise people that they're stupid. That's what it seems to me that comes out of, and again, like, there are some films this would work extremely well in, sure. And it's not, I'm not one of those people, it's like, oh, always, you know, never, you know, disobey your elders on anything ever. But the way that it is a trend, and it's like every movie, it's like the parents are either idiots or they're super immoral, and it's like it always ends up being where the teenager, you know, convinces the whole world that actually their way. They're 16 years old and they know everything. And I don't know, I would love to see some healthy things where at least it goes a bit more both ways. I mean, can you imagine a movie where it's like, you know, the punk Catholic schoolgirl actually realizes, you know what? No, I was wrong. Yeah. That'd be cool. I'd love to see a movie like that, but it'll never happen because that'd be offensive or something.
And if I can be honest, and this is a little bit of friendly fire, and you can feel free to push back on this. Honestly, there is this elitism within conservative circles, even in the media. So they rag on movies like, which I might be walking into a trap here, but they rag on movies like God's Not Dead or Priceless or The Song. And it's like, I'm not saying that they're Oscar worthy, but they just kind of dismiss them because they have happy endings and a happy feel to them. And they're like, oh, they're too Christian. And it's like, what does that even mean? And I feel like but then they'll say, oh, but I loved Mother, even though the movie is vile and it makes God look like this horrible being who just wants to be self-aggrandized all the time. But it was so beautiful. And I feel like, even as conservatives, if we want the culture to change, we need to drop that sort of elitism among ourselves and be like, you know what, Dunkirk, it's a movie about heroism. It's a movie about saving lives, and about a country coming together in the worst possible circumstances. It's a now, like I said, I've not seen it, but it's a great horror film. There's lots of scares in the end, and it's about a team, a group of friends who come together and fight this supernatural menace and whatnot. And I kind of feel like that conservatives, they get caught up in this, oh, we have to be elitist about art as well. And I just don't think we're doing ourselves
I'm not going to disagree with you on any of that, actually. I think that, you know, because I kind of see them tying together, right? Because I do think it's true. There's that culture of perpetual adolescence, and I will critique that. However, I also think that ultimately the reason that I find those movies where the teenager's always right and that culturally bothers me is because they lack that quaint self-awareness, which is why I haven't seen the other movies you mentioned, like God's Not Dead and those other films, but I know the exact kind of movie you're talking about. And I generally really like those movies. I like happy endings. I like that kind of, things don't always have to be so incredibly serious. Things can just have a little bit of whimsy to them. And I actually agree with you, because I never want to be where I'm watching movies like a feminist watches a movie. I try to enjoy them as they are generally. And, you know, you can't get too serious and be so like, oh my gosh, our culture is burning alive. It's a balance, I think. But no, I would actually generally agree with you that that's the case.
Yeah, and I actually told this to a friend of mine he's in the industry, but you wouldn't know him if I said his name. But I actually said this to him once. I said, I don't stop becoming conservative after I buy a movie ticket. Like, you know, I like what I like. And as much as even I hate it sometimes, the art world, whether it be movies or TV or paintings or sketches or whatever, they're still where they are now, they're still subject to the free market, and we just have to suck it up and deal with it. And because, you know, we can't say, oh, well, Hell or High Water, it was the best movie last year, but I don't like it, even though I believe that it did really good audience rating as well. I still think that what won Best Picture last year?
I don't
Moonlight.
know.
It was Moonlight. I think Moonlight should have won, even though it's just about a gay guy. So so I don't stop becoming a conservative and go, hey, now I'm not seeing Hell or High Water, but maybe that's a bad example, but I'm going to say I think Dunkirk this year deserves the award because it promotes those values. Maybe Get Out deserves it more, but I'm not going to say, oh yeah, maybe Lady Bird deserves it because some critic in New York City thought it was good, and I'm just going to agree with him because it's cool to, you know.
No, and you do ultimately take your worldview with you. And I don't think that you should try to get rid of that. I think it's just, again, it's finding the line, because, you know, if you get into a point where every single thing you watch, you're sitting there looking for like the death of the West, then you're going to find it, right? Because,
right, yeah.
and then that's exactly what the social justice culture has done with video games, movies, comic books, whatever, where they sit there and they prescribe malice to people for, you know, whatever reason. And everything that they watch, they're thinking, okay, let's look. Seems pretty sexist. Oh, that was racist. Like every single thing. And if you do that watching movies, you're probably not going to be happy with anything. Like look at It, for example. I just criticized this whole thing of movies where the adults are all stupid and the kids are, geniuses and teach the adults everything. It is also a movie like that. Mm-hmm. You know, so I can see that and still really enjoy the movie while still thinking that I wish it wasn't such a trend. That said, I think it's done well in a movie like that because it's actually a movie focused on, it's actually a movie that is really told through the eyes of kids in a kind of almost, Charlie Brown cartoon sort of way. The adults are very irrelevant. They're kind of just foils for the kids in the movie, which is a little different, I think, than trying to portray a healthy family dynamic. But nonetheless, you know, it's the way I look at things. I really try to keep a balance, and I try not to let myself be so caught up to the point where I can't enjoy anything. Because that's a really crappy way to live. Just sometimes you can just enjoy a movie. It's not always such a big deal.
And, you know, and I said, and Alicia and I talked about this last week where we were saying, you know, we need to, we don't have to go into every movie where we have to analyze all 75 layers of it. You know, we can just go in if we can like it or dislike it. Like, I personally think that, and I said this in my review on my blog, Black Panther, which I actually hope Michael B. Jordan gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor for next year's Oscars. That's how much I thought he was great as. He's probably the one of two Marvel villains that actually have some substance. That's a complaint I have about them as well. So the villains kind of lack a little bit. They're not very 3D. But anyway, but that being said, I went into it and I didn't really know what to expect because I have a critic over at Breitbart saying, "Oh, it's Trump," and then I've got Slate saying, "Oh, it's the next best social justice warrior movie," and I go in and I'm like, "It's neither. It's just a good movie."
It's a good movie. You know, you confirm your narrative with every single thing you watch, right?
Right.
Yeah,
it's crazy, and I honestly, and back to this year's Oscars, I think that Jimmy Kimmel, I think he's going to be abysmal again. You heard it here first, folks. I'm going to watch it tomorrow. I'm going to sacrifice 3 hours of my life for you.
Yeah, we appreciate it because I don't even own a TV. So
there you go.
I rely on you. You make me proud. Watch
next. Yeah, so I'm going to do it, and I honestly think he's going to be terrible. I think, who was it that did it? Seth MacFarlane. I did watch some clips from when he hosted it, and he actually did a pretty good job.
Yeah, it's funny.
So Yeah, and the same with Chris Rock. I thought Chris Rock, yeah, he was funny, even though I disagreed with some of the stuff he said, and certainly with some of what the award receivers did. I thought he did a good job hosting the Oscars, and so I'm kind of confused. Why wouldn't they invite back Chris Rock or Seth MacFarlane when Jimmy Kimmel did such a terrible job? That's like inviting not Hugh Jackman, James Franco and what's her name? Princess Diaries. Oh, Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway.
They did a terrible job.
A movie that I mentioned is one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah, Princess Diaries. Yeah. Oh, I had a little sister. I had to watch it over and over.
Had to watch it.
Oh yeah, I had to.
You had
to.
Come on,
sister. Yeah, no, it's
charming. It's a good movie. It made me wish I was the secret princess from Genovia.
Well, what's her name? Julia, the one who plays the grandmother. Julie Andrews. I actually do like her performance in there. I think she's a fantastic actress. So certainly better than Meryl Streep, who's probably going to win something this year.
I like Meryl Streep until I hear her doing anything but acting, and then I'm just like,
see, I think she's real hit and miss. I don't think she's that good. Like Devil Wears Prada, I'll give her a thumbs up.
That is like probably 99% of why I like her, because I think that is a fantastic movie. Also featuring Anne Hathaway. I absolutely love that movie. I think that's one of if I had to pick like one girl movie that is my all-time favorite, it's up there for sure.
And I also thought she was good in Julia and Julie. I
thought Julie. I like that. Oh, I've seen that movie too. That's another like cute movie that's got that kind of a bit of quaintness to it.
But again, you won't see those movies be nominated. Maybe The Devil Wears Prada was. I don't think it was.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was. It was pretty artistic, even though it was enjoyable. Those two movies, though, those are a good example of that. They had a kind of they were shot really well. They were really like, the cinematography is really good. Everything was very they really put a lot of effort into the details and the historical details in Julie and Julia, the fashion details in The Devil Wears Prada. Like they really did put a lot of effort into this, so they weren't just kind of like feel good girl, low budget girly movies. Mm-hmm. But they also were both just truly enjoyable as an audience. You weren't sitting there like, oh yes, what is the meaning of the curtain? You were just sitting there like, this is a good story. They had a story to them. That's what I like to see more than anything, is just things that have a really good story that you get invested in the characters, not just these characters that are clearly just cutouts designed to, talk about how great they are.
Right. And I do have one grievance, which we talked about before we went on, that I have to get off my chest, and that's that Baby Driver was not nominated for Best Picture. They went with 3 billboards, people.
I don't know what that is. Billboards.
And there were 3 comic book movies that came out last year, but I am saying Baby Driver was better than all of them. It was the best movie last year, hands down, and it was not nominated. Edgar Wright, the director, who also wrote the greatest millennial film ever, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, he directed it, and he didn't get a nod. I think it's nominated for Best Sound Editing and Best Music or something like that. And also, I feel like I should throw this in there. I think Patty Jenkins should have been nominated for Best Director for Wonder Woman. I don't think it should have swept, but I think she should have been nominated. Not saying she should have won, but I think she definitely she should have won. I'm going to throw out a prediction, and I'd like to hear your thoughts, because some people disagree with me. I think the pedophilia film is going to win.
Probably.
I think they're
just watching the trailers, I was like, oh yeah, there's the winner. Because again, it's the people, I think I said this before the show, the people that are sitting down to make a movie like that, they're sitting there like, like, how do you get this to be Best Picture? It is a Best Picture movie. It's a genre. Like, they're not making a movie for other reasons. Like, they're making a movie to be like, look how great we are by all the elite. It's a specific thing. So, you know what? In that case, maybe they succeeded. I think.
Well, I was just going to say, some people have pushed back. Some of my friends have pushed back, and they think that Lady Bird or Get Out is going to win. I think that they're just going to make Call Me by Your Name win, just to say we don't care what you think, Middle America. I think they're going to do it.
The only thing is that, I think we have to take the privilege hierarchy into account. I don't think Lady Bird will win. Even that's tough, because we had a lot of it was a woman director though this year. We had a lot of feminist outrage this year. So maybe they're going to try and do that. But then you look at Get Out, and it's like, you know, that has the kind of the Black community, and you got to get those minorities winning because Oscar's so white. And then you have, you know, the LGBT community, and I mean, like, but those guys are white. So I don't know. Like, you know, you really have to shuffle around the privilege hierarchy and get out your calculator and figure out exactly what the formula is. But I think, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked by any of those three winning. I'd be shocked by something like Dunkirk winning, which is the one that everyone wants to win.
If Dunkirk wins, I will be shocked. I don't think it'll win, but I do think it'll win something because it is such, they can't ignore it. It's just such a good movie. It'll probably get Best Producer or something like that. But it's not going to win any of the ones that people actually care about. Like, it's not. I was telling this to one of my friends. Was he's in the movie industry. He's a filmmaker and does stuff and editing and whatnot. And I said, because when I was complaining about Baby Driver, he said, "Oh well, it got nominated for Best Sound Editing." I said, "No one cares about Best Sound Editing." I thought he was going to choke me, and I was like, "No," because that's what he does. He does sound. That's part of what he does. And I said, "Dude, I'm sorry. It's just." People care about Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress. They don't even care about the others. Maybe there are some people who care about Best Supporting, but I doubt it.
When they do, it's to be like, look how cool it is. The first ever, like, you know, trans activist to win Best Supporting Actor. It's not like they typically care just in the sense that they care about the category. So I would agree with you on that. And I still feel like Baby Driver, I had literally never heard the name of this movie. So we were off camera and he told me that I literally was picturing, like, in my head, like, Due Date. Like, I was picturing a movie about like someone like, or like The Hangover, like a bunch of dudes like driving around the country with a baby. Apparently it has absolutely nothing to do with that. So
no, it's a very serious, it's a crime film. It's not, it's that's more, or a heist film. That's the word I'm looking for.
Oh, okay. I like heist movies, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, then you would definitely like it. It's probably the best heist movie besides maybe the first Fast and Furious movie I've ever seen, which, but I still think it's better than the Fast and the Furious, but obviously.
Wow, that's awesome. Let's nice to check that out.
Now, here's something. Meryl Streep was nominated for Best Actress for The Post. I've not seen it. I don't care. I think she's going to win this time because she keeps getting nominated, but she keeps losing. And I think this will be her moment. And so we'll get to hear her get up and talk for 5 minutes. What do you think?
Oh, no. She's going to get up there. It's going to be a feminist outrage. I hadn't even heard of this movie. And I was like, I really sit there and I'm just like, I'm so skeptical just watching this. I'm like, Washington Post.
What is so crazy is she's going to win for The Post. This is me. Like I said, I could be wrong, but I don't see anyone else winning. And she's going to win despite the fact that she is so connected to Harvey Weinstein. She is going to win that. And then she's going to get up and she's going to do some speech. Now, if she wins and she just gets up and goes, "Thank you, I love you," and blows a kiss and walks off, that'll be fine. But if she wins and she starts self-grandizing like she did when she called Harvey Weinstein God, then I'm just gonna roll my eyes.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that, just even seeing what the people who are, putting together the actual award show are saying about, oh, we're trying not to make it so political, probably because they see like, the ratings are getting totally screwed. But, ultimately, like, they can't really do much about what the acceptance speeches are going to be. I think that's where we might see some of the crazy, like, even if it ends up where Jimmy Kimmel isn't quite as obnoxious as I'm 99% sure he's going to be, you still might have some of these people coming up for awards. And, we might get some interesting thing from one of the, best supporting actress or whatever, where they get up there and say some ridiculous thing. I feel like somehow like the NRA is going to be blamed at least one point during the award show. The Me Too will be mentioned. Time's Up will be mentioned. I forget whatever the other.
But who won't be there? Rose McGowan, who got this whole thing started. She has been completely shunned, and even Alec Baldwin, one of the most jerk actors on the planet, he did an interview. Where he basically said, she's what did he say? She's just grandstanding. It's like, excuse me, she was actually raped by Harvey Weinstein, and he actually ruined her career. So allegedly, of course.
Yeah.
And you're going to call her a jerk because she called you out because you didn't do anything? You know, it's seriously, it's ridiculous.
Of all that I think about that movement, she seems to be one of the least objectionable of the crew. I mean, she said some things I think are dumb, but I don't think, you know, compared to some of these other people that knew what was going on, were hiding it for their own career, and then as soon as it became politically expedient to be like, oh, me too, then we're doing it, you know. So
well, and that's what my big complaint about Ashley Judd is. When she was first being interviewed about the scandal, she said, "Oh, I feel sorry for Harvey Weinstein. I'm praying for Harvey Weinstein. I hope he's able to get help." A week later, she's claiming she was one of his victims. I'm sorry, that is suspicious.
Just a little, just a tad. It's not very authentic. But this is what I hate about the Me Too movement. It's not that I think we should be, you know, promoting the disgusting culture in Hollywood of sleeping your way to the top and, you know, exploiting people beneath you to get ahead and above you to get ahead. No, I'm happy if that would be improved by whatever means it happens. Great. But, you know, my problem with it is that it's so transparent with so many of these people that they knew what was going on and they stayed quiet because, you know, they took it and went, look, this is part of the industry I'm in. And it's obviously, you know, this is sex, drugs, rock and roll industry. They know this. And that they chose to stay quiet. And that's one thing. It's another thing to stay quiet. And then all of a sudden, when it's mysteriously the most convenient thing in the world, that's going to get you, you know, more fame to be up there, you know, yelling at the men watching the movies or something for, you know, for causing this problem. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, like, you really have that level of principles where you just stand by and do nothing. And then with the second that the political winds shift, you're like, oh, my time is here. It's just, it's really, I think a lot of people see right through it. I really do.
I think so too. And, you know, especially since the Golden Globes, you know, everyone's getting up and grandstanding. Guess who sponsors the Golden Globes? The Foreign Press Association. What? Every one of the women who went up there, including Oprah, her speech was very overrated, by the way, they should have called out the Foreign Press Association. They were part of the problem. And I know they're not the American press or whatever, but the Foreign Press Association should be called out because I guarantee you they got tips. And they probably paid some women off like the New York Post did. The New York Post bought one of, I can't remember whose, but someone's story and said, oh, and they made her sign an exclusive contract and then didn't run it because the editor-in-chief was friends with someone. I can't remember which celebrity it was. And sorry, New York Post, if I'm wrong, if it wasn't you, maybe I should have just said a newspaper. But anyway, but we see
the New York Post.
Yeah. But that's the whole thing is we're watching this crumble beneath them, and they are so tone deaf about it.
Well, and they refuse to take responsibility for the culture that they've created. They just see it as this problem. Well, because it's all based on the kind of typical leftist narrative of, you know, how bad things happen in the world, because how bad things must happen in the world is that there has to be a, you know, evil cabal of bad people crushing the nice, good people. And of course, in this case, it's the evil cabal of men crushing the nice, angelic women. When in reality, it's far more nuanced. There have been instances of an evil man. I would say Harvey Weinstein falls to this because there actually is very credible claims of actual assault against other people.
They caught him on tape.
Yeah, there are legitimately people who fall into that category, but the culture itself cannot be removed from it. And the responsibility of those who enabled the culture, including the women who took part in it knowingly to get ahead in their careers, the tone deafness of not taking any responsibility for that is just astounding to me. And it really, you know, I would have so much more respect for them handling this if they were like, look, we need to look at, you know, what we're telling, you know, what are you telling young girls coming into this industry? Are you telling them that, you know, that they need to be willing to say, yes, I will give up this great role because I'm not going to, you know, do something I'm not comfortable with? I feel like they're not telling them that. And I feel like we've seen some conservatives who have been in Hollywood and have kind of, you know, escaped it that are saying just that they're coming in when they're, you know, young and that's the culture that it is, and they just kind of go along with it. And it's, in that case, also it's a parenting issue. I don't know why you'd ever want your children to work in this horrible field. But yeah, I think it's a really broad problem. And when they just reduce it to, we need to get rid of these bad men, it's never going to work, because it's the system that they have created is still there. It's just a narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're coming down to the end. Do you have any final thoughts? Huh?
No, I think I gave you a good 5 minutes of me ranting at you about this. I'm very, very interested in this topic.
No, are you kidding me? Folks, this is why I have Stefanie on, is because she always tells me exactly what she thinks, and I really appreciate that about her. That's why she and I have such good synergy when we're on Twitter or when we're on YouTube. It's the truth. So, Stefanie, tell everyone where they can find you.
You guys can find me on the aforementioned Twitter at Steph MacWilliams. It's STEF MacWilliams. And I would really appreciate it if you would check out my YouTube channel, Right Millennial. Jake has been on the show before, and hopefully he'll come back at some point. We should do that because, yes, I agree. We've got a good vibe going here. It's awesome. So thank you so much for having me. It's always a great time.
Absolutely. And, of course, y'all can find me here on the YouTube, StudioJake. Be sure to subscribe and ring that little bell, because YouTube is censoring the conservatives. And also, you can find me on Twitter at Real Jacob Berry. Facebook is Author Jacob Berry. And next week, we're going to do part 3 of the final part in this Oscar series. It's going to be our post show. I've got my all-star panel. We've got Rosemary Dewar, Ezra Celeste, and a special guest who I'll be announcing next week, or excuse me, this coming week. So be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.